Welcome to the Tech Ranch, live and local here on Super Talk 1270. The latest gadgets, online security, websites and apps, social media, and so much more. How can technology help you? Let's find out. It's time for the Tech Ranch on Super Talk 1270.
From our studios in beautiful Mandan, North Dakota, along the mighty Missouri River, here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
There are back-to-school sales everywhere, so obviously it is back-to-school time. We're going to be talking about the best picks for back-to-school tech. Miss Metaverse will be joining us later in the hour to talk about that. Of course, the tech fail of Delta's computers today is all a buzz. Yeah. So we're going to go over the top 10 tech fails in the last decade.
I like it.
So why not?
How many of them involve airlines? I imagine a few of them do.
There is one, as a matter of fact, as we go through this. So anyway.
I think I know the one you're talking about, too, from about 3 years ago.
That's exactly right. At the control panel, producer extraordinaire, James Walsh.
Well, hello there.
Do you go by James sometimes?
Not very often. When I was a little kid, went to Catholic school for about a year, and everybody insisted on calling you by your given name.
Sure.
You know, James, Kathleen,
Yep.
Robert, William. Oh, come on. Come on. And then I went through a period in college when I went through the James thing, because I was, being in college, I was taking myself way too seriously. Thankfully, I got over that.
I was called Geek a lot.
Geek.
Yeah.
I can't imagine why.
I'm just saying.
Oh.
That wasn't a good thing back in the days when I went to school, you know. But now we rule the world.
Well, the original meaning of geek.
I have no idea.
The original meaning of geek, it was a carnival term. The geek, some of the really cheesy, low-class carnivals where they had the disgusting freak shows.
Okay.
A geek was, very specifically, a guy who would bite the heads off chickens.
That is good to know.
Yeah.
I wonder how it progressed to becoming a computer geek or, electronics wizards or whatever we consider ourselves nowadays.
And then there was a song called Pencil Neck Geek.
Okay.
Fred Blassie, the wrestler, he made a record out of it.
Of course you would know that.
Pencil Neck Geek, grit-eating freak.
I don't need to have Alexa here when I have Jim.
Yeah.
You actually recall the songs better than she does.
I am the walking college of rock and roll knowledge. I can't balance my checkbook worth a tinker's dam, but I can do that. Yeah.
So
tinker's darn. I'm sorry there. Your grandson is here.
Yes.
We gotta watch your damn language.
That's right. So what? Speaking of Alexa, so what did you think of the Amazon Echo last week?
She reminded me a little too much of HAL 9000.
Really?
I'm sorry, Jim. I cannot do that today.
It is kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
How good. I mean, and there were some things that she couldn't answer, but for the most part.
Well, yeah.
I thought she did
I understand it's a
job.
developing technology.
It is.
But there's a lot of cool stuff. I love the musical stuff.
I thought that was fantastic. And I've taken her home now and set it up. And last night, of course, was listening to a little jazz.
Oh, yeah.
It's just
Alexa,
nice.
Play Miles Davis.
That's exactly. That's crazy you say that because it's exactly what I asked for.
Yeah.
So, it was fun.
Kind of Blue album. My favorite.
Yeah. So, of course, we're going to go over some of the disasters, tech fails of the last 10 years. Well, actually, this goes back a little bit farther. I actually pulled one up from quite, 1998. I don't know if you remember this or not. The Mars Climate Orbiter.
It rings a bell.
Okay.
I'll probably remember it when you tell the story.
Sure. So $193 million spacecraft got lost somewhere over Mars.
Your taxpayer dollars in action.
Just got lost due to the
just got lost.
Incompatibilities in the navigation system.
How embarrassing must that be to go to NASA and say, well, we kind of lost it.
Yes.
My dog ate my homework. It's terrible.
$200 million just floating out there in space somewhere around Mars. We think it's around Mars. We're not really sure, but we think it is. Yeah. This is an epic fail of all kinds, right?
Yeah.
So
the mother of all fails.
There are, of course, basically two measurement systems that we use in the world now.
Yeah.
There is what we use, which is the imperial system, inches, feet, yards.
Also called the English system.
That's correct. Very good.
Not
AKA
too many countries
American.
still using that. I think us and I think even Britain now switched over for the most part to metric. Haven't
Well,
they?
and yes, they have, and I think the challenge is that I think back in the 80s, actually when I was running track, back in the day, I know it's hard to believe that I actually was a trackster, but the year I graduated,
I'm not laughing.
we moved from like the 440 yard dash or the 110 down to the 100, because it went from 110 yards to 100 meters, for example, 440 to 400. Okay?
Yeah, meter is slightly longer than a yard, as I recall.
Yes, that's correct.
By about 3-4 inches.
About three and a third, I think it is. It's 39 point something
39.37,
something
I think.
like that. Yeah. Yes. So anyway, when they built this spacecraft, they used the imperial system of measurement.
Of course.
When everything else and all of NASA and everything else is all in metric. So
the entire scientific world is metric.
That's correct.
You know, if you go to the hospital, everything, all of your medications are measured in metric.
So they launched the spacecraft, and then the navigation system isn't working quite properly after that. So I think it's a pretty epic fail when you think about it. Something that you think would be so basic. But I understand how that could happen.
Yeah,
I do. I mean, I don't know about you, but if most of the scientists working on this were based out of the United States, why would you think anything else?
Well, I remember I was in Canada a few years ago for a brief visit, and I'm driving along, and I see the speed limit 85, and I'm thinking, excellent.
Yeah.
So I start, wait a minute, no, it's 85 kilometers.
Right.
Okay. Which is like 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, it seems a little fast at 85 miles an hour to be going through this residential area, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So the number 2 on my list is one that everybody can relate to in the last couple of years, 2013, healthcare.gov.
Healthcare.gov, yes, I can relate.
Oh, yeah.
Because I went through the whole Obamacare thing. When I was out of work, I went through that whole routine. I'll tell you that story one day.
And of course, as many of us know, that when you went to the website you were encouraged to go to the website. Yep. And what did they spend on this thing? $500 million on this website? I mean, it was some crazy amount of money to build this website.
The Republicans had a field day with that, remember?
Oh, it was crazy.
Yeah. Hey, see, it doesn't work.
That's right. Yeah, and you have all kinds. I'm waving my hand over here. Just pay me $1 million. I'd be happy to build it for you for $1 million. No problem over here, But that was an epic fail there as well. They have since, of course, fixed it. But it was kind of a big deal at the time.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but they only take it certain times of the year.
I do.
Right now, if I wanted to get on a health care plan, I couldn't do it.
To me, that is insane.
It is.
And I don't want to get into the political side of that because it frustrates me to no end. Because we got caught up in some of that too, because some of our health insurance provider that we had for 14 years decided not to do business here anymore. Yeah, because of all of this, so we had to change, and that was a nightmare in itself. So
at some point we will get into that in more detail, but it gets kind of political. We don't want to get too political.
Not today.
Not today.
So, yeah.
No.
All right, everybody. After the break, we will continue our discussion on the top 10 tech fails in the last decade or so. Come on back.
Right now, 73.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek at Facebook.com/The Tech Ranch or Twitter at Guru of Geek or TheTechRanch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
A little music for the Olympics here.
Have you been following the Olympics, Jim?
Not really, although I know Phelpsy picked up another gold medal over the weekend.
I didn't realize he was actually still participating.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was a little flap because they found out that he liked to partake in the old wacky tobacco.
Yes.
But I guess they figured out, and this makes sense, there's nothing performance-enhancing about that particular drug.
That's true.
If anything, you would think he'd be operating at a handicap. You wonder what he would do if he weren't half in the bag all the time.
Well, and I don't know if he's still doing that or not.
Probably not.
I think after his last Olympic, since he did so well, he was just partying a little bit too often.
Drugs are bad, okay?
Exactly. Well, we want to thank all of our listeners across the country and around the world who follow us on the Blueberry Network.
Thank you.
We're on the Tech Podcast Network. We're on Tuned In. We're on Roku. We're on Apple TV. And we, of course, have our own app, Radio Pup. So all kinds of places you can follow us during or after the show. We're talking about the top 10 tech fails in the last decade or so.
Yeah.
We went through the Mars Climate Orbiter and healthcare.gov. Next on my list is everybody's favorite, Windows Vista. I love this story. 5 years in the making, the successor to Windows XP, it was a disaster for Microsoft in almost every way. There were
they're kind of like Star Trek movies where every other one is a dud.
And, that is true with Microsoft. I agree with you. I mean, there was 2000 wasn't too bad. XP, Vista was a disaster. 7 came out, and that was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Then 8 came out, and everybody's like, what is this?
I mean, Bill Gates, everybody picks on Bill Gates, and I don't want to do that, but, the guy's such a visionary, and half the stuff that comes out, it doesn't work.
Right. That's exactly right. So anyway, but Vista is probably the most prolific fail that Microsoft has had. So they're still fighting in lawsuits over Windows Vista.
Yeah.
10 years later. So next up on the list is the Sabre meltdown. April 2013, American Airlines.
That's the one, yeah.
Had
American
to
Airlines.
ground some 400 flights due to a glitch in its Sabre online booking
Which I think
system.
affected us here at the time.
It did, yes, yes.
Bismarck.
This was hardly the only time software brought the U.S. aviation industry to a halt, but it was one of the worst until today.
Until today,
Yes,
Delta Airlines. If you're wondering what we're talking about here, the story is developing right now. Delta Airlines had a major crash earlier today, and they had to ground all their outgoing flights.
Now, when you
the
say
flights
crash,
that were already in the air were fine.
Yeah. You can't say that there was no crash. I mean, it was a computer crash.
Crash is probably not the right word
Right,
to use in the context of airline industry.
Yes.
We'll say glitch.
Yes.
There was a glitch.
Now, they're claiming,
major glitch.
the last that I've heard now is they're claiming that it was a power outage.
Yeah.
But it amazes me. I mean, I think about my own office, right? If we have a power outage, most of our stuff stays up. I bet yours does too here. You probably have UPS units
at night,
built in.
we just walk out the door and then eventually the screensaver kicks in.
Right. Well, I'm talking about if you have a power outage, you have some type of auxiliary power in this building, I'm guessing, that will keep some of the essential services going. Because you guys are considered essential for a major catastrophe in there.
Well, I've worked at major giant radio stations that had a little bitty generator thing that ran on gasoline if there was a hurricane or something.
Yep.
When I worked in Long Island on the East Coast, we had a hurricane come through, and we went out and bought a generator. We didn't need it, but we had it. We were good to go.
Yep.
And it was one of these deals where you pull on the thing like on a lawnmower to get it going.
Most of the time at our office, if we have a power outage, as long as it doesn't last more than a half hour or so, our network stays up. So our computers go, our monitors are still working, our internet still functions.
Yeah.
If it goes longer than that, then we'll probably get into trouble. But that covers about 95% of the power outages.
I should say for folks who are half listening so they don't get panicky, we're talking about what happened with Delta Airlines earlier today. They had a computer problem. We'll call it a glitch.
Right.
Nothing bad happened to any of the airplanes. The thing was that they just had to ground everybody. They couldn't take off.
Right.
In the interest of safety and scheduling and all that.
And that's probably the biggest thing.
Some of them have taken off.
Yes, they're starting
in the
to
last
fly.
couple of hours. But if you're traveling for any reason, if you're going to be in the air, especially Delta Airlines, you might want to call ahead just to make sure everything is hunky-dory.
And even if I was flying a different airline, I would probably call ahead. Because I'm sure they're trying to move, anybody who's trying to fly anywhere is trying to move to different airlines right now to try to
because it does affect everybody.
It affects everybody.
Delta's a major airline.
You have tens of thousands of people that are grounded trying to get places right now.
Yeah, if you're flying if you're flying south of here, if you're flying into Texas or Atlanta, Atlanta's pretty much all Delta all the time.
That's
it's
correct.
A major hub for Delta.
Yep.
If you're flying to Atlanta today, you might want to make that phone call.
Absolutely. So next on the list, UMPCs. So again, we're talking about the top 10 tech fails in the last decade or so. UMPCs, they are ultra-mobile PCs. So before tablets and smartphones, there was the UMPCs.
Well, I had a laptop.
So these are mini machines, smaller than a laptop that ran Windows.
All right.
So these were these little they almost had that slide case that would pop open, and then you'd have the keyboard. They were just these little tiny computers, right?
They looked like toys almost.
Almost, and they just didn't really take off. They were chunky, expensive. They were actually very expensive. Many of these units ran over $1,000, and they were underpowered, so you couldn't really do much on them.
Yeah.
So, and they got, the biggest thing about them is they got really hot.
Oh.
So, to the point where, I mean, it was hot enough to burn your fingers. It was that hot. So all the reasons why this category sank like an anchor after the iPhone. When the iPhone came out, they were gone. Just
Is that
done.
the thing that they had, the little pencil thing where you could write messages on the screen?
I don't think that one had that, but there were
Okay.
some other devices.
Yeah.
We actually have a tablet at work that runs Windows 98.
Well, the pharmacy I go to,
yeah.
My pharmacy, because they require your signature on certain types of
Right.
medication, and they have a thing. It's like a little pencil, but it's not. There's no ink or anything or graphite in it, and you just sign your name on the monitor, and it copies your name down.
It's very similar, and this technology that we're talking about here is probably the precursor to a lot of the things that we see today. So this probably was a fail, but it probably brought some things forward. And one of these is probably like the credit card machines like you're talking about, right? Where you slide your credit card through when you go to a superstore or whatever now, and then you sign the little screen that's there. I'm sure this is the precursor to a lot of those type of technologies.
Yeah.
So speaking of superstores, Walmart's online fire sale. Do you remember this?
Refresh my memory.
So
I'm sure it'll come back to me.
In 2013, there was an error on the retailer's website, November 2013, caused some consumer electronics costing that would normally cost about $600 to be listed for the low price of $8.85.
All right. Hey, you want to buy a boat for $8? Okay.
I remember this because I started getting emails like crazy. They were like, you can buy this computer for $8.85 because it's in November, of course, too. So you're thinking this is a Black Friday type of deal. And you're like, is this even true? And you hop in there and you order it, and it was $8.85.
Yeah.
I ordered a couple items at that. Then, of course, they came out later on and stated that they are not honoring this because it was a glitch. But I'm sure there were
I'm sure they have fine print where they cover themselves
Yes.
for all of that stuff.
But there were millions of people that got it. Because I remember myself, I hopped in there. I was just like, you have to be kidding me. This computer is $8.85. I think that's some TVs on there.
Now, the prices have come down.
They have come down, but
not that much.
Not to $9. No. So that was interesting to see. The let's see, the BlackBerry. So this is interesting too. For 4 days in October 2011, you remember the BlackBerry, don't you?
I do indeed.
Okay, and
I had
very
an old
popular.
friend who had one, and
and
used it a lot.
A lot of people loved the BlackBerry.
A lot of people swore by them.
Oh yeah, they were great, and
a lot of people swore at them.
To this day, they are actually preferred by many people in the mobile market. But this is kind of what happened. 35 million people were unable to access their email or browse the web to a service outage for 4 days. So in that 4 days, the company lost $54 million due to people canceling their accounts and all this other stuff. And that was the start of the downward trend of BlackBerry. So
Bummer.
Sometimes these tech fails can dramatically impact a company. Walmart survived their little thing because they offer many, many products.
Oh, yeah, they're
BlackBerry,
Walmart. Yeah.
And just because I bought computers, there's people still want to buy clothes or whatever else, right?
Cars,
BlackBerry, that's what they have is this device, and it just didn't work for 4 days.
Yeah.
And people were just leaving them in droves because of it. So,
yeah.
So that's kind of the story behind BlackBerry. And you never know, BlackBerry may make a comeback someday.
Yeah.
So after the break, everybody, Miss Metaverse will be joining us, and we'll be talking about the technology that you should be taking to the classroom. And, of course, we'll have our young guest here as well,
our
third
faithful
grader.
assistant.
Yes, Logan Dutenhofer.
Logan
is
the
here
boy
as well.
wonder.
Yes. Come on back, everybody.
Right now, 73.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
And in studio, we have producer extraordinaire, Jim Walsh. We have from the soon-to-be third grader, or maybe, I guess you are considered a third grader now after you get out of second grade, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So third grader from Red Trail Elementary, Logan Dutenhofer. How are you doing, Logan?
Good.
Good. And, of course, joining us from the New York area, Miss Metaverse. So, Katie, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Marla. How are you doing?
Doing fine as well. Thought it would be appropriate to have a student here in the studio with us today as well, since we're talking about the cool tech that you should have in the classroom.
Yes.
Yes. So, I have done absolutely no prep for this segment.
Taken after me.
So it is all falling on you today, Katie. So, but
Great.
but let's get into the Delta thing first. So we were just talking about it before the break.
Yeah.
So, what's your take on the computer meltdown situation with Delta today?
Well, my take on it is that it's a fiasco. I mean, this kind of stuff is scary. You know, for those of you who don't know what happened, there was a global computer outage that Delta Airlines had experienced, and it forced all of the airplanes to be grounded. There was cancellations everywhere, and it was a mess. So just this morning, flights have resumed, and it's pretty scary for sure.
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was going to ask, based on your knowledge, Katie, is this kind of thing generally avoidable?
I would like to think so.
I mean, I know we're talking here with
because
20/20
you have
hindsight.
Such a huge company, and you have so many lives in your hands. I mean, each airplane. How many flights go around the world each day? I mean, it's insane how many flights are out there. And
many
Delta,
thousands.
I mean, they're one of the most popular airlines. So, of course, that you would like to be able to trust that something like this could not happen.
So,
but unfortunately, as we see here, there seems to be a lot of security concerns with a lot of different things these days.
So they're saying that this is due to some type of power outage, but that just doesn't seem to make sense to me for some reason or other. I don't know. What is your take on that?
Well, I kind of agree with you. It seems like the information is very vague. You know, was it a hack or they just had a power outage? You know, it's not like there's one central place. It's not. It's like the internet. You know, everything's all connected. It's a little bit hard for me to wrap my head around how a power outage could force all the planes to be grounded.
I would think
like
they'd have
that.
some sort of redundancy system set up to jump right in when there's a problem. You would think.
I agree. I mean, you know, if your main power is
We
cut,
do it here.
Yeah.
And, you know.
We do it at our office.
We ain't Delta Airlines here, but we got that.
So, I mean, it seems like, you know, I'm hoping that we have more information, and hopefully it isn't something nefarious that somebody had done and cut the power lines and also cut the backup to their mainframe or whatever it is that they're using. Yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about it, actually. So, all right, let's move in to what students should be taking to the classroom this fall. So, Katie, I'm just going to let you start the conversation, and Jim and I and Logan will chime in whenever. So.
Okay, so I think the biggest thing that we need to start off with this talk today is that, you know, technology and just education in school has changed so much over the last 10 years alone. I mean, I have to say there's a lot of different ways that I look back on how school was when I was in high school compared to how much it's changed already within, you know, 10 or so years, 10, 15 years since I graduated. I mean, it's insane. It's crazy. I mean, we had Nextel phones. We thought that was a super high-tech technology. But now you look at it today, and there's a lot of different factors you got to take into consideration. For one, there's security. So when you go into school, you know, my high school before 9/11 didn't have security concerns like that. You know, you didn't have to go check in your bag or worry about having certain things or name badge. So these things are all different things that we take into account now today because there are more security concerns than ever.
So I'm going to stop you right there, Katie. So since Logan's sitting right here, so when you take a pack or a backpack to school, Logan, is there something you have to do with it? Do they have to go through it where you go to school at, or do you just throw it in your locker?
Some schools have metal detectors.
They do, yeah. Do you have a metal detector in your school?
No.
Okay. So is there anything that you do at all when you go to school right now with your backpacks? I mean, does a teacher go through them, or is it not a big deal? Okay. So, and of course, we live in a rural area here, Katie, so it probably, I'm just trying to think of the best way to say that, I guess. We're concerned here, but we probably don't have the issues that an inner city school would have, for example.
Yeah. Although it's changing here.
It is changing here.
It is changing here.
So what Logan is saying to us right now, I'm going to guess is going to change in the next couple of years. Even our court systems here now.
When Logan gets to high school, let's see what happens.
That's correct. I agree with that. He's smiling over here now. He can't wait for that to happen, obviously. So, all right, Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, so, listen, here on Long Island, it's definitely suburban. It's about an hour or so away from New York City. So, it was, of course, very shocking to me when my high school that I went to suddenly put in, metal detectors and had security checks. And there was a period where right after 9/11, all the kids had to have clear backpacks. And I think still they have name badges now that you have to scan when you go through the hallway as like your hall pass.
Sure.
So I know here in New York it's definitely a lot different, and I'm actually happy to hear that it's not like that over there, because it's a bit it's a lot, It's very scary in uncertain times for sure. But on a much lighter note, there's a lot of really cool things that you can get, and a lot of things for back to school aren't even tangible. Of course, there's really cool things like digital notebooks and smart pens, which I'll get into in a second. But let's just kick off with some apps, because I have a couple app ideas, which I feel like would be really helpful for people who are either parents or students who are going back to school.
So before you get into the app thing, and before we get into before the first break here, I have what I think most students probably go through right now if they're shopping for a computer. Are you going to, are you thinking that right now would it be wiser to buy a nice computer or some type of tablet? I mean, what if you had to make the choice, what would you do?
I have to say, if it had to be right now, I would probably lean. It really depends on what the needs are, because, for instance, I worked with a STEM educational camp, you could say, last summer, and I was here on Long Island. So students from schools all across Long Island and even from the city came and they attended this camp that I helped run. And we taught everything from robotics to AI, 3D printing, and all these kinds of things. So it was really fun. But, there's a lot of different things you could take away from that. STEM education is hugely beneficial, and I'm happy to see more of this stuff is coming out now, for sure.
So you're leaning towards the laptop because of that?
Yeah.
Or?
Well, going through that whole course, I'd say I was trying to think of what they used. Everything was Microsoft, so they had the Microsoft tablets.
So they're using the Surface and things like that.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So I think for them, if you're hands-on and you're doing things like that, then that's good. But then again, if you're doing a lot of studying or you're in college and you need to save a lot of data on your computer, of course you're better off with a laptop, because it has a lot more abilities yet that the tablets don't quite yet.
I would think high school, too. High school and college, from high school on up, we'll say, you definitely need some kind of laptop. And if you're in grad school, you need a souped-up laptop, probably.
Right. Although I will say that I will say, like 2 years ago, I would always have said a laptop. But now, you look at like the Surface and there's some Androids, and Apple too. They all have the ability to have a keyboard on them now.
Yeah.
But you still have that mobility of a tablet. So, and I look at, I'm picking on Logan a little bit now, but I've seen him. What's that device you have, Logan, that's got the two handles on the side? I mean, that's just a tablet that you're using, right?
Yeah.
It's like in a green case.
That's Tyler's.
Okay, so that's Tyler's, which is his brother. And he walks around, and it's got two handles on it, and he's got on this tablet all the time. So I love the mobility part of that, and I can see that being utilized in schools and that type of thing too. And quite frankly, you talked about the storage thing. More and more people are using cloud storage anyway.
Yeah.
So Dropbox, and I even see schools now that are using Dropbox and that type of thing to assign, to push out assignments. And,
How
and all that
early
stuff,
are they starting them now in school? I mean, how young are the kids who are actually carrying some kind of computer device to school with them?
Do you carry something to school, Logan?
No.
Okay, but
What
you're on
grade
the
are you
computer.
in, Logan?
Third
grade. Okay.
So you just came through second. So, but you already have testing this year on computers, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
I've heard of third graders who do, however.
All right. Yeah.
It is a thing.
It is a thing, yes.
Yes.
And I've seen that in schools too. Some of the schools that I work in, as a matter of fact, have devices all the way down to kindergarten that they carry with them.
Well, I know you want to start them early, but how early do you want to start?
That's a good question. Katie, what's your thought on that?
I think that kids should start I've seen, this is so crazy, but I've seen, even with, my daughter using an iPad and things like that, it's amazing how young they could learn how to open up the laptop or the iPad and just start, using it like we would. I mean, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, my nieces, when they came to visit me like 2 years ago, it was amazing to see like what they do. I mean, one had a BlackBerry and the other one had an iPhone, I believe. And it was just amazing to see like how these kids have cell phones and things so young.
Yeah,
I do believe there are a lot of benefits to it. Like you're saying before, Marlo, a lot of things are in the cloud. And there's a lot of apps that are taking place, of a lot of things. I mean, if we look back the last 10, 15 years, a great majority of things that we used to use or even need rulers or calculators and all this stuff that we used to have to buy at Staples for back to school. We don't need any of that stuff anymore.
Right.
A smartphone replaces 90% of the things we used to fit in our backpacks.
I'm going to stop you right there, Katie. We'll continue this conversation after the break, everybody.
Right now, 79.
On Twitter, Facebook, online, and YouTube. supertalk1270.com.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And in studio, we have Logan Dudenhofer, a third grader from Red Trail Elementary in Mandan. Jim Walsh.
Where's the geezer today? I think he's over working the Delta Airlines computer.
Yeah, he's napping, which is why it's not fixed yet.
Probably.
So, yeah. And, of course, from Long Island, Miss Metaverse. So, Jim, you had a quick story you wanted to talk about when you were just graduating.
I graduated from high school in 1974. The last year, my senior year, in fact, it was like the second semester of my senior year of high school, they started bringing in computers for the students to noodle around on. Now, back then, what they called a computer, you had this little room you went into and you sat down in front of this thing. It looked like the old-fashioned teletype machines.
Okay.
And it had a keyboard there, and you would enter the information, and it would actually type stuff out. It sounded like the old teletype machines, whop, 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 wop, 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 wop,
Sure.
and it would hack out the information. And I never really figured out that much. There was some kind of Star Trek game that the nerdy kids liked to play. We didn't call them nerds back then. We called them we called them brains.
Okay.
He's a brain.
Yes,
He takes calculus. He's a brain. But the brainy kids, they would get on these computers and do things. But that's totally different ballgame.
Amazing. And I'm thinking about when I graduated from high school, we went from manual typewriters to electric typewriters. And that was past your graduation time. So it just depends on where you're at, I guess, in the country. So, all right, Katie. We've taken enough of your time now. Lead us down the path of what we should have for going back to school.
All right, cool. So, we said some pretty funky things before, so I want to get something really good that parents and students can actually use. Here we go. All right, so there is an app, and this is a brilliant idea. I love it. It's called Here Comes the Bus. Have you heard of it?
Haven't heard of this.
All right, so it's pretty much like it sounds like. It's a free app, and it's good for parents with younger kids especially. And what it does is school districts across the country are using it now, and it allows students, parents, and administrators to GPS locate school buses so you could see their arrival and their departure times, and of course where they're at on their trip. So I think this is a great idea because, being a parent, having seen the bus come late multiple times, you're thinking, oh my goodness, did I miss the bus? Or is there no school today? Or, is the bus going to come in any second? Should I be waiting by the door? And this app will help you be able to go on your smartphone or device and see in real time where the bus is. So I think it's kind of neat.
I'm even thinking security-wise, you don't have to put your child out there, and not know that the bus is not showing up for the next 10 or 15 minutes, whatever, standing on the corner or in the space that you're waiting for the bus. So weather-wise, too. I see kids out there standing all the time when it's 10 or 20 below around here, waiting for the bus to show up. Now they could just, right when the bus is about ready to get there, they just bolt out their door and hop on the bus. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's great, especially, if I was living where you guys are too, I would definitely love to have something like that because, I'm a little bit spoiled that I get to just go outside my house and go, but, we're below the snow belt. You guys really get snow. I mean, you guys get real, winters over there, and, I think parents and kids would definitely benefit from it,
It's really cool. It's a good idea. So I'll actually bring that up locally here because I think that's fantastic. All right, next on your list.
Awesome. Alrighty. So next, this one's kind of fun. It's called Brainscape. And when I think about school and studying, flashcards are probably the biggest thing that everybody uses. Doesn't matter if you're, a younger student or if you're in college, everybody uses flashcards.
Oh, we had it
right?
when I was a kid, sure.
Brainscape is a free iOS app, and it allows students to make flashcards on their mobile devices. And what's really neat about it is that you can share it with others so that if you have flashcards and you need to study with your fellow classmates or you're in a study group or you're broken up into teams, you can, share those flashcards across multiple devices and users. So it's very neat.
That's pretty cool. Logan, you use flashcards?
Yeah.
Okay. And let's go back to the other app there, too. Would you use that app so that you can see when the bus is coming?
Yes.
Do you stand down by the bus stop for quite some time some days waiting for the bus to show up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, great things, Katie. Keep going.
Awesome. All right. My next one is called iHomework. Alrighty?
Okay.
And it's $1.99 on the Apple Store.
Okay.
It's an iOS app, obviously, and it's ideal more for high school students and college students, older kids, and it allows you to keep track of your homework, and you can categorize your homework by due dates, and you can do it, and then you can access the homework by weeks or months, like a real calendar, and you can also connect it to something called Questia. I haven't heard of this, but it seems to be used kind of, I guess, among schools nowadays. I haven't heard of Questia. It's Questia.
Okay.
And you're supposed to be able to use it with this Questia app so you can access your assignments. So what I'm guessing is that this Questia website or app or whatever it is where you can, I guess, students would have their assignments at. So this way, with the iHomework app, you can access your work, your assignments, and then and maybe even turn it in through this. So that would be pretty cool, too.
That's pretty cool. Okay. Very nice.
Yes, I haven't really heard of an app yet where you can submit your homework to your teacher through the app, because I feel like that would be kind of neat, too.
I know that there are some, but I'm not sure about an app basis, but I know that some schools are using like Dropbox, and they'll, each of the students have their own Dropbox, but then the teacher has access to them as well. Yeah. So you can do your homework assignment, drop it back into Dropbox, and then the teacher can review it from there. So that's what I've seen to this point. Jim, since you just finished up, on
that's pretty much how we did everything.
That's how you did everything.
All our assignments,
Dropbox?
we turned them in online the night before. They had to be in by midnight Sunday night for the class was Monday.
Okay.
And then we everybody walked in Monday, and we were good to go.
Okay, so that was something,
half the time they were already graded. We're already getting them back.
So that was something that was actually on the college's website that you turned it into?
Or, the college has. I'm trying to remember the name of it here. I don't have my. Let me see. I have my iPhone. I'm sure I still have well, I don't have my phone turned on.
Okay.
But there's a couple of special apps that are designed specifically for academic purposes.
Gotcha.
And they have the whole thing set up where you can do assignments there and submit them right there within the app, and they'll go right to the professor.
Well, that answers your question right there, Katie.
Yeah, they do exist. It is a thing.
All right, what's next on your list there, young lady?
Well, I'm back to tech tools now. This is kind of what I was speaking about in the beginning of the show. This is kind of neat. So it's a smart pen, right? And it's called the Neo Smart Pen N2.
Okay.
And it's basically one of those pens that allows you to you write in a special notebook, and then you can use the iOS or Android Notes app, and then you can capture digital copies of whatever you write in that notebook. And what's really neat about it, it's kind of like an Evernote, but you write in an actual physical notebook, and you can save your notes. It's one of those. But what's good about it is it's more on the kind of, I'd say it's kind of reasonably priced for the system. I mean, I've seen more expensive ones. This one's $169, but I think if you're doing a lot of notes where, either you're an older high school student or even perhaps a college student, having something like this would be helpful because it has one feature which I really liked. It actually takes your handwriting and it turns it into text. And then saves it as text, which is great. Yes.
So you
Because
could
I have
actually
chicken scratch. I don't know about you, but I have terrible handwriting.
So then you could edit it later if you wanted to or whatever.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And what's the name of that again?
This is the Neo Smart Pen N2.
Okay.
And you can find it on Amazon for $169. And then the notebooks are sold separately.
Okay.
And they're about $20 for 5 spiral-bound books or $20 for a single hardcover book.
Okay. So do you have quite a few left on your list, Katie?
That's about it. I mean, I wish I had more time to get into the back-to-school tech today, but I was really trying to do some research and find some cool stuff. So
Sure.
I hope I
think
found a couple you guys like.
Oh, yeah, these are fantastic. I think if you're a college student heading out as well, if you want to talk your parents into getting something, a Roku, Chromecast, or an Apple TV should be something that you have in your bag when you're going out. It's an inexpensive way to have some entertainment, and they sync to your devices. So, Katie, a pleasure as always. Logan, thanks. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Jim, pleasure as always, too. Have a great week.
Thank you.